I'm going to read the story out of Go Deeper because I'm in a pretty emotional spot in my life, and I'm not going to attempt to share. I'll just read you what it says. My name is Tim Kurtz, and I met Barry at the church we both attend. When we met, I was in a deep depression and a time of struggle after my son's suicide. I used to be a pastor in the student ministry and worship. In 2001, 2 days after 9/11, my oldest son, Brian, was going through a time of personal struggle and fear and decided that the solution was to end his life. I continued in ministry after death until I realized that there were some things in my own life that I was really struggling with. I took a year sabbatical and came back as a volunteer. It was in 2005, 4 years after my son's death. I cannot explain the struggle that I encountered during that time, but it was coming from every angle in my life. I found myself hating God with all of my heart. I also became filled with hatred and bitterness towards anyone who claimed to be a Christian. Again, I cannot go into detail, but everything seemed to be dark, hopeless, and I lost all trust in God. A friend of mine who isn't even a believer but knew me before this event told me I needed to get help. I left on a motorcycle trip across the states from Arizona to Illinois to see my dad. I spent 5 days with my dad, and somehow he convinced me to give God, my marriage, and my kids a chance. I agreed, only because he was my dad, and returned home 11 days later. In 2008, I moved my family down to the southeast valley of Phoenix, where I found a church that was meeting at a school. At that church, I met the man God had prepared for me. That's Barry. After a few sentences into our conversation, Barry asked me if I would take a look at some books, and he had, and asked if I would be interested in getting together. I told him I would love to. We met at a Paradise Bakery every week, and Barry began to just share his life with me. I poured out hatred, bitterness, and anger all the more, while he poured out faith, hope, and love back into me. God had produced the very fruit in Barry's life that I was so desperate for. Besides meeting with me every week, he would text me scripture and want to know what I thought of it. This got me digging into the Word for myself, or the Word met me and spoke words of healing. I'm walking with the Lord now in a way that is not just back to where I was. No, He has brought me to a new place and lifted me out of the miry clay. I'm now doing for others what Barry did for me. I plan on doing it until the day I die, and I'm so grateful to God for Barry, and I know many men now who feel the same way. That doesn't mean that life is perfect, and I'm perfect, and I'm A-okay. I didn't want to be here today, because I don't feel like being here. It absolutely sucks. And I'll read you some of my writings during that time in my life. On January 13th, 2003, so this is coming up not even 2 years. Lord, it is so easy to get distracted with the cares of this world. Money and bills, kids in school, etc. I get so overwhelmed with the cares, and I take the pressure on myself and don't rely on you. Lord, I really want to worship you, not just sing and make music that sounds good. Lord, I pray that you'll draw me close to you. Lord, please bless me financially and in ministry. Increase my borders. I want so badly to be a huge man of God. Lord, I want to serve you and be an obedient son. I love you. Your son, Tim. I moved up to Williams, Arizona to build Lost Canyon. It's like a young life camp. I've been a carpenter and a pastor most of my adult career because I never wanted to get swallowed up in church. I just see it happening to every full-time pastor I know. They lose touch with the guys that are dying. And all they deal with is just church people. And all they do is kill you. So it's just a really rough place. And I was making now, because I got out of construction, decided I'm going into ministry full time after my son's death, and went. My pay was cut almost in half. To get counseling at a deducted rate from Christians was $75 an hour for my family. And I called Jim Goss's organization, and I turned the earth upside down trying to find a believer who understood my situation. And it never came to fruition. So the Lord led us to a great counselor who said, man, you just show up. You pay what you can. If that's nothing, that's nothing. The Lord pays me. But a lot of circumstances led me into just deeper and deeper depression. My kids really started to fall apart. My wife became suicidal. I wanted to continue to serve the Lord. We talk about stuff that really mattered, and my heart was dying. A little bit later, in a journal entry, that was January. It's crazy that I even kept some of this stuff, but maybe somebody here is really hurting. I'll skip that one. Here's a letter I received from my son. This son was 17 years old when my 19-year-old son committed suicide. So here's a letter I received in June of 2003. Mr. Kurtz, this is my son talking to me. Let me explain a little of myself to you. I am 19 years old and don't know who I am. How does a male my age act? What am I supposed to be worrying about? What is in this world for me? My world first started falling apart when my older brother shot himself. At the time, it was more of a shock than reality. I thought it was going to be all right, and I can't have any problems. I'm a Christian and a pastor's kid at that. So I learned to be happy and thrive. Now, it's been a few years, and I'm almost older than Brian. Isn't that weird? And I think I am starting to understand why he did what he did. This life sucks. I thought I wanted to be a pastor and help people, but how can the blind lead the blind? And someone told me tonight that I am selfish. My son started to go into the ministry. Ministers definitely can't be selfish. I wish I was selfish and didn't care so much about people. Then I wouldn't want to be a pastor. But after seeing what my mom and dad have gone through, why would I want to serve God? You act like I can't see the stress and pain in your eyes. I see and hear what goes on. Where's the blessing? The time I started losing respect for you, Dad, was when you got mad at me for what I said during our family devotions. You bottled it up inside of you the whole morning, and then you told me. I thought you liked junior hires because they share their feelings. Well, that's what I was doing. I don't want to be a hypocrite. What else makes me mad is when you get mad at me for being negative. You're bipolar. Don't tell me you're Mr. Perfect happy all the time. You have blind spots too. You know what? I probably thought about killing myself 5 times yesterday. And I was bawling, crying while you guys were at church because I finally looked at pictures of Ryan. I hate it. Today, there was not one reason I could think of as to why to get out of bed. Why go to bed? Why blink? Why take another breath? God doesn't tell me otherwise. I just want to go to heaven. I think I am experiencing hell now. I am lonely, tired, sick, guilty, useless, meaningless. I am dead. I am dead. He shares a few more things. So as a dad who's desperate for his kids, that became my massive fear. So I decided, since God could go to hell and I didn't give a rip about him, I just let all the rules in my household go. I didn't care what my kids did as long as they didn't kill themselves. They could go street 20 girls. I didn't care. You go get drunk. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Just don't kill yourself. And that started as a man pushing me deep into, okay, how does a man succeed? Well, he makes money. He provides for his family, houses, cars, the things that make men really important, right? Because I felt like an absolute failure as a dad. When I met Barry, that's where I was at. So I started asking very difficult questions. And all my Christian friends left because I was no good to be around. But the man that really woke me up was a Vietnam veteran, not a believer, but he knew me as a believer, and I listened to him. When I met Barry, that's where I was at. And I had promised my dad I would go to church, I would give my wife a chance because I hated her guts. My kids were just killing me. The only thing keeping me alive was my youngest boy. He was 12 when Brian killed himself. By the time he was 16, he was bulimic. He was vomiting everything he ate. He was cutting his wrists. He was a football superstar flunking out of school. And I was just a busy dad. So when I met Barry, I was not looking for a church service. Heck no. Walk in, listen to some guy tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing, and leave bleeding worse. No, that's not what I wanted. I was looking for some men. And God specifically brought me to Barry, and he had specifically taken Barry through some of the exact stuff that I needed to hear, because as a man, I had put the backpack on that I am going to save my family. And it was about to kill me. In fact, I didn't want to live, but I couldn't kill myself. I was stuck. I didn't want to take another breath, because all it meant was that there was going to be more pain. But if I kill myself, now I know what I'm going to do to my kids, and like hell, I can do that. So what do you do? How do you survive in that turmoil? And at certain times in my life, it takes another man who's just a little bit stronger than you are to help you do that. And that's what Barry did for me. Because I wanted to load a real gun and just get out of here. But I couldn't. So Barry loaded the scriptures, and he just kept shooting it into me over and over. And I needed to bleed. Because I knew I wanted to patch everything up and just be perfect. So I'm not standing here today because I am now, I just love life. So great. Sometimes it's way more than I even want to face. And man, so many regrets. And Barry and a one-on-one friendship, still to this day in my life, is the one thing every week that I just look so forward. We meet at 4:45 in the morning. I hate mornings. I'm in construction, so I gotta get up early. I would stay up all night long to hang out with Barry. And I'm not lifting up Barry. I only do that because I know he's not going to take an ego and go with it. But that's what your sons, that's what the men in your church need. I'm not perfect. I mentor my son-in-law. And I had people tell me, you can't mentor your son-in-law. He's married to your daughter. And I'm like, if I can't the hell mentor him, who can? Man, he's my son. I don't care if it's in-law. I've adopted him as my boy. And it has turned out to be such a huge blessing that I pour into the man that is pouring into my little girl. So don't believe a bunch of the crap about who you can and can't. Pour into your family.